Good morning. You guys need a few more minutes to allow people to join?
Yeah, good morning, Brendan. We just need a couple more minutes and we'll get started. We're gonna do roll.
Welcome to WebEx.
Sure, absolutely.
Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Okay, Brendan, we are ready to start. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, not a problem. All right, so we're going to just more or less pick up where we left off from yesterday. We got to where we were adding a service note or a start of care Oasis. I did remove that, so I can, and I'm going to have to probably keep removing it, but I did set one up and finish it on another patient, so we'll kind of go through the back end of that instead of adding the whole one. But just to kind of recap on adding the Oasis integrated assessment, of course, you'll find the visit on your home screen. Click on the patient's name for the correct date of service. And just FYI, since I mentioned that, you cannot add a service note in the future. So if you guys ever, accidentally click on the wrong visit, you will not have the option to add a service note in the future. You can do it anytime from today and anytime in the past. So just FYI on that. But you click on the visit to add a page service note assessment. Sorry, since I enlarged my screen, it just moves these pop-up windows around. You're going to choose for an Oasis integrated assessment. This is going to be on all your starter cares, your rocks, your discharges, etc. So if it's an Oasis visit, choose Oasis integrated assessment, then hit continue. And again, I told you we have logical time point sequence for the Oasis. So it's going to look for a start of care before you have any other Oasis options on a brand new admission. So make sure it's correct. Again, we cannot change your service note type. Once you add a Oasis, if you were to choose another follow-up or anything like that, and if it's incorrect, the only thing we can do is delete that, and you'd have to start over. So always make sure you have the right note and right Oasis type before you move forward from this screen. And then hit save. And it'll bring you into the edit mode of that service note. And again, typically in the beginning, you're going to just put your time in, and you're not going to know your time out until the end of the visit, so you just move forward from here. Hit next. It's going to, again, save all that information on that section. It sends us that information, and we'll have it in the servers, and then you just move on to the next section and keep answering your questions. Now on, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but anything up here in this gray section, if any of that information is incorrect, you do need to make sure you correct it somewhere else. So if the name was misspelled or the start of care date was wrong, any of this information, if they're missing their Medicare number, this needs to be taken care of in the patient encounter. So you'd have to go to the profile tab to correct the spelling of the name. The contacts tab is where it pulls the residence zip code. Medicare number is going to be coming from your payer tab. Date of birth and gender is also from the profile tab. So just remember that. Some of these, like your race, ethnicity, and your current payment sources, are going to pull automatically if it was answered within the referral or on the profile tab, etc. So if this is incorrect, you need to correct this as well, and then just, again, move forward. If it didn't pull over, this is your opportunity to go ahead and answer those questions. And I'm going to just go ahead and save and close out of this note, and I'm going to show you one that I have almost completed real quick. I have it filled out. I just haven't marked it as complete yet. Okay, so I've filled this one out, And so typically what you would do at the end of your visit, whether you finish your service note or not, you do need to come back to the header supply section and go ahead and get the timeout entered for this service note or for this visit. Then you're going to choose under patient signature. You'll hit this drop-down box. You're going to choose electronic signature, and then you'll hit enter signature, and it's going to bring you a little pop-up box for that patient to sign in. They'll sign in that. Again, you can clear this out if it's not a good signature. Once you're happy with it, choose accept. And make sure you visualize that this the signature is there. Make sure it's there. Otherwise, you may need to reapply it. And again, it does timestamp all the signatures involved. Since this is an Oasis, we do have the Oasis Analysis tool. So up here at the top of your service note, you're going to have an Analyze button. I recommend go ahead and doing this every time you do an Oasis. Analyze it, and it's going to give you the Oasis Analysis report. Anything that's blue or just maybe inconsistencies between two different answers, they're just little heads up. There's some VBP 5-star warnings. This will basically tell you, you have no room for improvement. I answered that this patient had no pain. So it's just saying, hey, you don't have no room for improvement, so you won't get any points for that. Anything that's red is going to be a fatal. It's going to be rejected by CMS no matter what. So typically, this is just because our branch ID, it's all fake. And then hold on, I'm going to have to mute some of these lines here. There we go. If you guys have a question, just feel free to enter it in the chat. So anyway, and then I didn't have a Medicare number for this patient, and I marked it as a Medicare patient, so it's giving me a fatal for that. So anything with a fatal, you've got to get fixed. If you skip any answers or questions, Oasis questions that had to be answered, you will get fatals for those as well. So make sure you analyze this and answer those questions appropriately. And the next thing you would do is, if everything looks good and you made all the corrections you might need to have made, you're going to choose Approve on your service note. If there are any errors, you're going to get these errors right here. And you can click on the errors, and it'll take you directly to where that information needs to be completed. And again, this is going to be because of the Medicare number, and I marked it as a Medicare patient. So, but then that's all you do. You approve your note, and then you'll be done with it, unless the note is QA'd and is sent back to you, in which case you'll get a message up here in your unread messages, and then you'll have to go back and edit that service note to mark it as complete. So that's how you're going to enter the Oasis integrated. There are a lot of locators in there that will pull to your 485, so your diet, your activities permitted, all of that information will pull automatically to your 485. So if we come here to the 485, I'm going to just go into the edit mode of it. Now, I didn't actually get to mark that as complete, so some of this may not have pulled over yet. But all of these questions, the DME, safety measures, nutritional requirements, allergies, functional limitations, activities permitted, mental status and prognosis, all of those are in your Start of Care service notes and Recert notes. So these will pull automatically from your note once you mark it as complete. You will have to come in here to do the schedule, which we're going to talk about in just a second. There is a goals, rehab potential, and discharge plans question also inside your service note that will map your disaster information, your strengths, goals, preferences, patient risk for ER, all of these down here, everything that's required from those conditions of participation from 2018, all of those are going to be automatically flowing over here for you. Okay. And then you do need to come in here and sign your order as quickly as possible. I recommend doing it the day you activate that patient. At least come in here and get your signature on it. You don't have to have this 485 completed. It just needs to have the signature. And again, this is for the PDGM requirements to bill that wrap in a timely manner. Either you sign the referral order and I have a verbal order date on the referral order, or you come in here and sign the 485 and have a verbal order date in the 485. It's going to look for both places for that signature. It only needs to be in one, and then the next thing that needs to happen is that first billable visit to be verified, and then that's going to generate the wrap so you guys can release it. So I do recommend, if anything, at least come in here and get this signed as quickly as possible, just to make sure you get those submitted quickly. All right, so now we are going to go into the scheduling portion of this. We did our start of care service note. We've got it completed. The office will manage it after that. They'll make sure that the Oasis goes through coding, everything's done and complete, and then they'll lock it in the office. And again, if your note gets QA'd, you will get a message so that you guys can go in there and make corrections to that. So for the scheduling portion, you do need to go to the Orders tab and then find your 485 and then go into the edit mode of this 485 by clicking on the edit pencil icon. It's going to bring you into your 485. You will see, all the meds that you have added will end up showing up under the meds section. That I put in hypertension, but your primary principal diagnosis will pull over from that start of care. Everything else will. So you just need to come down here to the scheduling portion. We're going to spend a minute on this because it can get a little bit complicated. So right now we have our admission visit for skilled nursing right here. It's a 1-week one for the 3/9 is when we had it. If I wanted to see the patient again during this week, the week of 3/9, then I would come in here to the 1-week one and click on the skilled nurse 1-week one, and it will open up the sorry, let me mute some lines here. And it'll open up, it'll show you the assessment visits already checked. So leave that assessment visit there and then pick the other day of the week that you want to go that week. So you can just pick, Thursday, Friday, whatever. Now, if you're going to go 2 times a week for the whole, 4 weeks and then move down to 1 time a week or anything like that, you can just go ahead and make this a 2 times a week for 4 weeks by adjusting the duration for 4. And then hit update. This will go ahead and get us our 2 times a week for 4 weeks. Just be aware on these calendars inside the orders, this last week, you can see here's April 1st. It also matches this week with April 1st. So if the month crosses over, you will end up with a duplicate week in here just so you can be able to see that entire month within there. So some people, when they first start, they'll see this looks like 2-week 5 instead of 2-week 4. Well, it truly is 2-week 4. So just be aware of that. And then if you wanted to move down to 1 time a week, now we're just talking about doing a scheduling on a weekly frequency at this point. Just pick whatever the preferred day is. We need to know where to put this visit. And then again, adjust your duration for as long as you need it to go. And then hit add. So that's kind of how you're going to do the weekly frequency. Now there is something else I want to show you. If you wanted to skip a week, what you would do is leave the amount blank and the duration for however many weeks you want to skip. So if you just wanted to skip 1, leave it at 1 and hit add. Now it's going to say 0 week 1 in there, but whenever the order actually prints, it will not say that. It'll say the skilled nurse effective 3/9 2 week 4, and then it'll end up saying skilled nurse, 1 week 1, and it'll be effective after that 0 week. So it'll be effective 4/11. So that's how you can get 0 weeks in there, skip weeks. So if you wanted to go a 0 week and then go 1 time a week and then do another 0 week, just again, add your frequency, leave this at 0, hit add, and that'll skip another week. And then you can just kind of keep doing that over and over again until you get through the end of the episode. The other frequency types that we have available are daily. This is used, now let me back up. For weekly frequency, if you plot anything as a weekly frequency, you can drag and drop those visits anywhere within that Medicare week. So even though we're putting them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we would be able to move them anywhere from Sunday to Saturday, and you guys could balance schedules that way. So that's for the weekly frequency. If you do it as a daily frequency, you cannot move that visit off that day. So this is one way to make sure a visit doesn't get moved. by plotting it as a day. It would not be able to get dragged and dropped. Or it's also used for scenarios where you need to go multiple times in one day. So if you switched it to daily frequency, it's going to ask you how many times a day and for how many days. And then when is the start date for this? And then you would just hit add. And for some reason it didn't show up on there. Let me get rid of that. There we go. So it'll show up like this. It'll show multiple visits during that day. And then again, you cannot drag and drop this. So this would be any scenario where you have to go multiple times a day. Just remember, you cannot drag it off that day. The other frequency options that you have is the queue. This is like if you wanted to go queue 3 days for, the entire 60 days, it would plot a visit every third day for 60 days or however long you do that duration. So I don't see that too often, but you have that option. We have the monthly frequencies. So if you wanted to go one time a month for 2 months or one time a month for 1 month, you have that ability as well. And then we have the PRNs. So the PRNs is just going to be the number, how many PRNs you want to have available for this certification period. And then you'll just hit add. Now these will not physically show up on the schedule until you do an extra step afterwards. Okay. Once you add any discipline, discipline over here, any calendar, it is going to add that discipline over here, and each one has to have an order description. So, this is going to be, Locator 21 is typically for your disciplines and treatments, frequencies and durations. So whatever scheduling you do over here, it's automatically going to be printed after your discipline title on the 485 or any other order that you use that has scheduling in it. It's automatically going to print this frequencies and durations. I recommend leaving that the way it is because that's going to be exact. The computer is going to get it right every time, and you will never be out of compliance. So I'd recommend doing that. Do not retype your frequencies and durations over here in the order description because, for one, it'll be duplicated when the order is printed, and for two, there could be a discrepancy between the two due to human error. And then you would have to do a frequency clarification order to get that corrected. So you don't have to write that in here. Your frequencies and durations and discipline will be taken care of. But you do need to write something else for your order description. So whatever your agency is going to require you to write in here is what you would write. Now, any additional orders like PTI&Rs due on a certain day, things like that, you would write these directly into the order description here. But remember, we're going to end up doing what we call care needs, which are your interventions and goals. So your interventions and goals will flow directly into your service notes as well as your 485. So for the interventions and goals, you don't have to worry about documenting that in here. Some agencies are just saying see care needs if there are no other orders, and then they can hit update. While I have this open, I do want to tell you there is a spell check icon that you guys can click on that will do a spell check for you. And then there's also the physician suggested text icon here. It looks like a little folder. If you click on that, if your agency has, and they do, suggested text, then you're going to see these in the list here. Now, your skilled nursing, it'll show you the skilled nursing order right here. And you can use as many as that apply to this patient. So I'll just use this since you guys already have it in here. Now, it's going to pull this verbiage into this box, but then you would have to edit this to be patient-specific. So everywhere where there's a blank, low dash in here, you can enter that information appropriately. If anything does not apply, you could remove it, just delete it. This is all 100% editable right here. So anytime you enter any information in this order description box, you do have to hit this update. If you don't hit that update and you come down here and save and close or schedule discipline, which will save and close as well, or even cancel, this verbiage would be lost. So once you're done with this, or even if you're not done with it and you need to work on it later, hit update to get that information saved for this discipline. And then it's going to be in there. So another thing skilled nursing usually does is they'll go ahead and do the, the home health aide frequencies and durations. So to change disciplines, just come over here to this little, under the discipline, hit the drop-down arrow, and then you'll pick your, your home health aide. And then you'll pick how many times a week you're going to go for them. I want to show you guys something. If you ever try to schedule something outside of the end of the episode, so I try to put a visit on this Saturday up here on the 8th, and you can see how it's grayed out up here. The end of the episode for this order is going to be the May 7th here, so it will not let you plot outside of this order duration. It goes for the beginning or the end. It's going to keep you compliant. So if that ever happens, you can switch this just to the 8 weeks, and then you'll have to put in the extra visit for the 9th week, or just move this around and you'll be able to get those visits in there. And again, they need their order as well. I don't know if they had a home health aide one in here. There we go. Again, update that information if needed, and then hit update to add this to the order. Okay, and down here on Locator 22, any additional information, and remember I said the rehab potential and discharge plans will pull from your service note, but you can add additional information as well. Some agencies will add summaries in here for their mission summary or research summaries, things like that. And again, you have a position suggested text box here. If anything was added to the settings, lookup tables, and labeled for use as a goal, then that would also be available for you guys to pull into this section. Otherwise, you can, again, for the goals, you would just say, see care needs or whatever your agency administrators are asking you to fill out there. Okay, once you, double check, make sure everything's filled out and looks good. When you do this scheduling up here, this is not physically on that patient's calendar until you come down here and hit Schedule Discipline down here at the bottom. This is an edit mode, and you want to make sure it's right from this edit mode before you put them on the calendar. And the reason why is once you assign a visit to a clinician, or if there's a scheduling note attached to one of these visits that are plotted directly in the order, or if there's any other kind of transaction, like it's been verified, scheduling note, anything that's attached to those services, these will gray out, and you will not be able to edit them unless you back things up. And so, by the time you get service notes attached to visits, it's really a pain, and you don't really necessarily want to, download that service note and re-upload it as a paper service note just to get rid of it to correct the frequency. So sometimes if you're too far down the road, it's just better to do a frequency clarification order, do a replace discipline order, and get your frequencies and durations corrected that way. So make sure this looks good to you before you come down here and hit schedule discipline. That way you don't have to worry about it, having to make changes. Once you hit schedule discipline, it will save and close the 485 so that all the other portions can get done. So if there's therapy involved, they would be able to go in here and add to their frequencies and durations, and we'll end up doing the care needs and stuff as well. Let me get a payer in there. I didn't get one in here on this patient. Okay, so for the scheduling portion, you'll come up here to, and this depends on if you guys actually assign those visits or not, but I'm just going to kind of go over it so you guys have an idea how it works. You would click on the scheduling link, and then you'll see all of these unassigned visits that we just plotted. And we actually did them all the way back in May. So these need to get assigned. There's two ways of assigning visits. You can click on them one at a time and then choose edit. JP, I can't really get any larger than I already am. It's at 175. I'm sorry, I'm just
It's just my age dies. That's okay.
I apologize about that.
That's okay.
So to do this, you may have to override availability check if these are grayed out, if these check boxes are grayed out. But you would be able to click on next to the clinician's name that's going to go do that service and hit save, and that would assign one visit at a time. Of course, you know, most agencies, most staff, most patients love continuity of care. So typically you're going to assign multiple visits to the same clinicians. If that's the case, if you come to the left side of the calendar, you may need to change where it says choose discipline to make sure you're on the correct discipline you're wanting to assign. And then find that clinician's name, and then to the right of their name, there's a little calendar with a green plus. This is going to be mass assign, and then the one with the red minus would be mass unassigned. And they kind of work the same way, but in an opposite direction, obviously. So if you click on that calendar with the green plus, it's going to bring you all of these visits that are unscheduled or unassigned in here. And at this point, you can assign every one of them to the same associate. Or if they were only going to do, you know, your Tuesday visits and you're going to have somebody else do your Friday visits, you have the ability to filter to the certain criteria here. Whether you're wanting to do just, you know, this month it's going to be this clinician, and then the next month it's going to be another clinician, so you can do the service dates filters up here if you needed to. You can do day of the week filters, so if I wanted just my Tuesdays, I can click Tuesday and hit search. Then you can see down here under the grid, under the DOW, which is day of week, it only shows my Tuesday visits. And then every one of these that are checked would be assigned to that same clinician. So you have the whole filtering ability, which is really nice. It's kind of a newer thing. Then down here under the associate, it's going to say keep existing services. They're going to be plotted based off what we have set up in the settings as a certain visit type for whether it's your initial services or routine visits later for each discipline. So this is going to default, right now it's defaulting to the hospice home health aide revisit for this patient. You do have the ability to change that service code if it needed to be a different one. So I'm going to change it to the home health revisit. You also have the ability to do scheduled times, which will let them know this needs to be, you know, an AM visit or a PM visit kind of thing. So you could put 8 a.m. to noon, 8 a.m. to 9, whatever you want to do here, you can put in those times. If you do it on this side here, it'll assign that same time to every one of these visits. Or you can come over here to next to each service and put in a specific time for each visit if you wanted to. And they're not necessarily needed. You don't have to have that. So this is how you're going to do mass assign. Now I'm going to filter this back to every day of the week. I'm going to leave all of them checked. All of them are going to be this new home health aide revisit service code, and then I'm going to hit save. So that's the fastest way of scheduling. It'll assign every one of those visits to that same clinician that you wanted it to. Now you can do the same thing for skilled nursing. Now it usually does default to one of the disciplines that are unassigned. So right now we have skilled nursing are the only ones left that are unassigned, so it filtered this back to skilled nursing. And then at this time you can go in here and find your clinician, and again click on the green calendar with the green plus, and go ahead and get all these assigned. Now in this, you know, for your nursing, if you're the primary discipline, you're not going to want to do that research visit you don't want to plot it as a revisit. So you would just assign all of these visits as the revisits and then uncheck your research visit, and then you would hit save. Now you can do two things at this point. You can actually scroll to the research visit on the calendar and get that assigned just by clicking on it. Or even if there's only one visit, you still can come over here and hit that green plus. But this time you're going to want to change that to a research visit. That way it's plotted correctly and billed correctly and paid for correctly. So those service codes drive payroll and billing. So make sure they are right if you, if you guys had to do any of that. So I showed you the PRNs that we had available, and they're not on the calendar. You can, if you're on the patient calendar here, you're going to see this link up here at the top that says Schedule PRN. Of course, in your verbiage of your order, you should have what those PRNs are available for. 2 for falls, 2 for Foley changes. They need to be specific. So what we do for you, when you hit Schedule PRN, it's going to open up this box. It's going to tell you what disciplines you have PRNs available for, how many PRNs you have remaining, and when they're available from. So this is going to be for the cert period that 485 covers.
Brandon?
Yeah.
I believe our schedulers are going to be doing all the scheduling for our nurses.
Yeah.
And we have all RNs here right now. So, I think they need to know how to enter orders and that kind of a thing.
Okay, well, we can skip that. Will they ever schedule PRN visits at all?
No,
Like if
the
they're on call?
schedulers will still schedule those. They'll just ask our scheduler and the scheduler will do it.
All right, not a problem. So in that case, as far as the start of care goes, you're done. As long as you've marked your service notice complete, you've done your frequency, or you're not done. I'm sorry, you got to do your care needs. You're going to, do your frequencies and durations and get that verbiage on the 485. Make sure everything did, map to the 485 from your service note. If not, you can answer that stuff directly in the 485. And then the next thing you're going to need to do is add care needs or attach care needs. So to do that, you hover over the little action item menu next to your 485, and you're going to see under that pop-up menu an option to attach care needs. You're going to click on that. You'll get this little pop-up window. You'll put the start date for that care need, and I'll just backdate this to when this beginning of this episode. You're going to choose your discipline. Now for RN and LPN, for skilled nursing, RNs and LPNs, you only have to do this for one of the disciplines, and it's going to show up in both discipline service notes. Same thing with PT, PTA. They're grouped together. There is an ability to separate them if needed, but typically the disciplines are going to do the same interventions and goals. So you can just do this for the one RN, and it's going to show up for everybody. Once you choose a discipline, all the ones that are available for that discipline will show up in here, and you're going to choose all of these care needs that apply for this patient. So you can pick, just whatever works for you, and as many as that apply. Now there is levels here that you can use on this side. For the care needs, you can do high priority, low priority, medium priority. They're not required to move forward. But this would identify, the priority level for you guys. And then you would hit save. Again, hit all that apply for this patient and this discipline. And then you're going to scroll down underneath the Oasis, and you're going to see this care needs section. This is where you're going to have those care needs. So these are the 3 that I chose for my patient. And then you can see that priority levels in there. Now you're going to want to add the interventions and add goals to those each one of those care needs. So for the anxiety, I'd come over here, hover over the action item menu next to that, and then I'm going to choose Add Intervention. So all those interventions that are available for that care need will show up. You can choose a different start date, but if you leave this blank, it'll just default to the start date of that care need order or care need. So you could post-date these. If you're going to do a certain intervention after 2 weeks, maybe they're on bed rest for 2 weeks, and then after that you're going to do, a certain intervention, you could post-date these. So what the interventions will not show up inside the service notes until the start date. So that's kind of how that works. So you'll add those interventions, then you'll need to also, and if you needed to edit those intervention descriptions, you'll choose Edit Interventions. It's going to bring you a list of those, excuse me, I didn't hit the right one. If you needed to edit the interventions as far as what you have applied, start dates and end dates, then you would choose Edit Intervention. If you needed to edit the descriptions, it's further down. It says Edit Intervention Description. So it will bring you those interventions that you chose, and you can click on the one you want to change, and make that change to this verbiage to be patient-specific. So there may be care needs or interventions and goals that you want to adjust that to. You want to do this as soon as possible before the other clinicians start seeing the patient. Once this verbiage gets pulled into a service note, it will be grayed out and you will not be able to edit the description anymore. So you want to do this pretty quickly, and you want to do it before the next clinician goes out to see the patient of the same discipline. Okay, so we added our interventions, we edited the intervention descriptions. Now we need to add our goals. So you're going to click on Add Goals, and this is going to be for this intervention. You're going to choose those goals. Hold on, let me get out of here. And on these, you also have a goal status. Typically, when you're first adding them, you don't know their status, or it's definitely not met. You can enter this information here if you wanted to, and it will flow to the orders. But again, you can leave that blank if needed. You can do a future start date. You can put in an end date if you wanted to, if it was going to only be for a 2-week period, and then it will drop out of the patient service notes moving forward. In a lot of scenarios or situations, it's best to leave this open-ended, because you don't know, even though you plan to meet this goal within 2 weeks, you may not meet that goal in 2 weeks, and you don't necessarily want it to fall out of your service notes until they truly met that goal. So, and for that reason alone, it's a lot of times it's best to leave that open-ended here. So you're going to do that with all of your care needs, add all of the interventions and goals to each one, and edit them if needed. And then, again, you would also need to add, if you did have home health aides in there that you guys ordered, you would also need to come back and do attached care needs to get that home health aide care plan on there. So you pick your home health aide discipline, and then you're going to scroll down to the home health aide plan of care. And then once you get that in there, again, scroll down here, find that home health aide plan of care, hover over the action item menu, and choose to add your interventions. This is going to be your typical home health aide plan of care. So you'd pick all that apply for this patient that you want your home health aide to do for this patient. And then this is what mostly drives the home health aide service notes. So they're only going to have their interventions. Now, you can add a goal also for your home health aide care plan, but the goals will not show up inside the home health aide service notes. They will only pull to the orders, because home health aides aren't, able to assess and determine if a patient has met any kind of goals. So we do not put goals inside their service notes. Once you get all your disciplines, care needs, interventions, and goals added, then you're done with the start of care process, unless your administrators reach back out to you and say, again, they need you to make corrections to the service note or anything else. I am going to go ahead and approve this one so we can go over other order types now. We're just going to pretend this one's been done and approved. So for certain order types, you do have to have orders in a certain status, and I'm going to explain that here in a second. Let me just find a doctor that has an address. To change who the doctor goes to, again, I've mentioned already, you have to have that doctor on the physician tab and then you'll have these little drop downs under the physician names in every order type, and it's always going to default to the primary, but you can switch it to the secondary doctor or any of the other doctors that are involved in that care. Of course, your 485 needs to be the primary physician, and it needs to match because that's whose MPI is going to be sent out with your Oasis, so make sure that stays the same. Just leave it at the default for the 485. All right, for different order types, some are always available no matter what, but to write them, you need to hover over the little action item menu next to your 485. For the episode, you're going to write that order in. So the effective date of the order needs to be between the 485 cert from and cert 2 dates. But you can do this for older episodes if you need to go back and write a clarification order and things like that. So the ones that are always available are the Addendum Orders. Addendum Orders are adding visits in addition to what you already have on your calendar from your 485. So it doesn't change any other frequencies and durations, but you're going to add an extra visit to it. So these would be, a good scenario would be like if you are only going one time a week, but then the doctor changed the blood pressure med for this patient and asked you to go, 2 additional days, 3 days in a row, so that you can check that blood pressure every day and make sure there's no issues with that med. So it's you choose the effective date of the week that you want to add that those extra visits, hit save, and then it's going to bring you into an order with basically just the calendar in here for your scheduling and then your order description. So you can find, the day of the week that you want that, and we'll just say we're going to go these 2 days, and then we can go ahead and add that, add the order description, and then, again, sign that order. I hit enter signature and hit accept. Now this will plot an additional to week 1 for this week right here of 3/9. And again, you would hit schedule discipline to get them physically on the calendar. And so those are always available. You can do them anytime you want. I apologize, my dog's barking. The other options that are always available is other interim order. An other interim order is just a verbiage box. So you're not going to be affecting calendars in any way. So if you, let me show you how this looks. You'll go in here and it's just this verbiage box. So if you don't have to change frequencies and durations, you have to just change something like for like your wound care. You're still going to go 3 times a week, but instead of using Santal, you're going to use, Alcocel AG or something like that. So you type your new wound care orders and just the verbiage because you're not addressing or changing frequencies and durations. So this would be used for anything that does not affect calendars directly. You also have available lab interim orders. This is going to be just a verbiage box as well, but over here under the order type, it will say lab, so it'll be a little easier to identify. There's case communications. These are they are managed just like orders. They get sent and received. Well, they get sent, but these do not require a physician signature. So these are any kind of communication you want to let the doctor know about something, and then that's just going to notify them. So maybe the patient had a fall, you assess the patient, there was no injuries, no complaints, something like that. But be aware these case communications are managed with the orders, and it may not get sent out immediately. So if it is something that was urgent or important, you would definitely need to call the doctor as well and let them know about it, and then you can document that in the case communication as well if needed, and then it'll get sent out. So these may or may not go, right away. It depends on how fast your agency is at processing orders. So be aware of that. The other order types that you have are under the Add Interim Order up here at the top. It's different from Add Other Interim Order. So Add Interim Order is going to give you options all the order option types. So you get the addendum in here, you get the Aide care plan in here, you have the case communication in here, the lab, the other interim order. So all of those that are still available here, you also have available here, but you have a lot of additional ones, such as the clinical update order. A clinical update order would be used for any time the patient has like a new diagnosis. This is how those new diagnoses need to be added to the encounter. This is real important for PDGM, so the clinical updates would need to be added for that. The other things, it looks just like the top of a 485. So if your DMEs change, your safety measures change, you need to add new allergies, their diet changed, activities permitted, functional limitations, mental status, prognosis, if any of these things change, then the clinical update would be the one to write for that. It's just like a 485 minus the scheduling portion. Let's see. There is also a discharge discipline. This would be used if you were discharging a discipline early. If you did not fulfill the frequency and durations for whatever reason, maybe they were refusing home health aides now, they don't feel like they need them, but you had them scheduled through the end of the episode, a discharge discipline will wipe out whatever discipline you choose here from the effective date forward. So it'll wipe out the calendar for you, and that's how you're going to get rid of all those visits. And let me show you kind of what that looks like. It will have a schedule in there as well so that you can, well, it doesn't have that. You'll be able to, edit the description saying we're discharging due to patient refusing, whatever your scenario is, and again, sign that order, and then the office will approve that and send it out. That's if you're discharging somebody early. Again, the lab visits, just the label with the verbiage in it, no calendars. Missed visits or missed visit orders, they do not need signed by the physician, but they get sent out just like the orders do to notify them why you didn't complete that visit. The other interim order, we already went over that. It's just a verbiage box. There's a replace all, which I don't see used too often, but what it'll do is wipe out every discipline's frequency and duration from that effective date forward. And then it gives you a calendar in there so you can add all of the disciplines back in there with their new frequencies and durations. Don't see that too often, but it's available. There's a replace discipline. This one's used frequently. This one is if you're going to change the frequencies and durations for your discipline. So a good scenario for this one is if you're going 3 times a week for wound care, but now the wound is healed and you're only going to go once a week to monitor, this will wipe out the calendar from that effective date forward. And again, in that order gives you the calendar, a new scheduling calendar, so you can put your new frequencies and durations in from this effective date forward. So you can drop it from the 3 times a week to 1 time a week. So this will take care of all of that for you. This one's also helpful when you do get frequencies and durations incorrect on the 485. And if they're incorrect on the 485, then they're incorrect on the calendar as well. So the replace discipline will wipe out that discipline's schedule from the effective date forward, and then you can correct that frequency. And then in the body of the order, you can clarify that this is a frequency clarification or correction. So this one's used an awful lot. The resumption of care order, that's a whole process that I'm going to try to get to here in just a minute. You actually have to place the patient on hold, and then when you reactivate the patient, you'll wipe out their calendar. And then a resumption of care order will let you plot whatever discipline's going to do the resumption visit, the resumption Oasis, and it'll plot it on the effective date. And then this is an assessment service so that it doesn't lock it down once you assign those visits. That gives them the opportunity to go out there and reassess that patient and come back in here and do the frequencies and durations. we'll go over that in a minute. We have a summary. This is just, again, it's a label. It's going to call it a summary. Does not require a physician's signature, but you guys can send those summaries to a physician, whatever kind you want. This summary version is just a verbiage box, so you can type in anything you want. We also have a summary form, which pulls in some additional information in here for you, or it's actually more of a template for you to fill out. So you can fill out this information. So some agencies like this form, and some just use the blank one. So whatever you guys, your administrators prefer. Some of these other order types are not going to be available because, and then we have a transfer form. The transfer form, I like that one. It does pull in additional information. It'll show you your order, your latest orders. The medications will pull to it. Your interventions and goals, or your goals will pull over here. And then you can fill out this additional information as well. But a lot of that's going to pull over from the encounter, which is really nice. Now the discharge summary, I can't show you until we put this patient in a discharge status, but I can tell you the summary, the one that says just the summary, is just a blank verbiage box. The one that says summary form is like the transfer form. And then there's also the patient discharge transfer, which is just a blank verbiage box, and then the discharge transfer form, which is like the other transfer form as well. But the patient would have to be in a discharge status for those ones. So those are the different interim order types and options and how they could be used in different scenarios. Just a second here. So that's all. Do you guys have any questions? Orders, it can be a little bit complicated. If you did have an order in here that affects frequencies and durations, you do need to get that in an approved status before you'll have the option to, and let me kind of demonstrate here. I'm just going to save and close this order so it's not approved. So if I was to try to come back and add an interim order, a lot of these are going to be grayed out, so you can't choose them anymore. And it tells you why. It says cannot add due to orders not approved, which is going to be for all of them. So any of the ones that affect frequencies and durations have to be approved before you can write another one. That way you can, there's no conflict if you were to approve them in the wrong order or something weird like that, and your calendars get all messed up. So we prevent it from even happening in the first place. So if it is grayed out, you can read why, but it's almost always going to be because these need to be approved first. So whoever approves orders may need to be notified that you need to get that approved before you can write those other ones that you need.
Brendan, we have a question.
Okay.
Does every order go to the MD?
Well, those are going to be processed later. Yeah, they will go to the MD if you send it to the MD. I mean, you have the option to mark, not the 485. You do have the option to mark some orders as signature not required, but that would be kind of some rare instances. The only thing with you, just so you guys know, if you did mark it as signature not required, it would never go to the physician at all. So you need to make sure you send it first, and then you can come back and hit signature not required, or just enter a receive date if it's something. But like I said, those ones that do not require a physician's signature do not require a receive date. But we'll go over the backside of processing the orders in the later training. So I did want to tell you two things. I want to go over the ROC process, and I want to talk to you something specific about the transition patients and how to do standalone Oasis, which is part of the ROC process. So, and I know you guys, field staff may not be the ones to do this, but I kind of just need to go over it so you guys are aware and know how that process works in case there is some issues. So when the agency finds out the patient is on hold, the first thing you have to do is come up here to the patient encounter and choose place patient on hold. There is the option for patient request if that's appropriate. Most of the time it's going to be admitted to patient facility. You choose the facility's name, and then you put the hold date. Now, there are those scenarios where you find out they went into the hospital after they already got out of the hospital. Even though you know the end date, you do not want to enter it in yet. And the reason why is you will not be able to add your transfer Oasis. So the patient has to be on a hold status to be able to do a transfer Oasis. Once the patient's on hold, whoever's going to do this part would have to come over to the action item menu next to the 485 in the episode you're concerned with and choose Add Oasis. Then you're going to have the option for the transfer patient, not DC. If the patient was a transfer DC, a DC or death at home, you have to have the patient in a discharge status to get those Oasis types. So again, CareFision's doing everything it can to keep you guys compliant. You have to have this transfer in here before the nurse that does the resumption of care will have the option for a resumption of care Oasis. So even if this transfer is not filled out at the moment, you can just hit save and close, just have it in there. And then when we do the resumption of care, they will have the ability to do a resumption of care Oasis. Otherwise, they'll just have like an other follow-up available. So get rid of this order real fast. So then you find out the patient came back. And again, even if you found out after they've already went to the hospital and came home, after you get that transfer Oasis in here, in place, then you'll choose to reactivate the patient. When are you reactivating them? When are they off hold? And do you want to remove scheduled services or do you not want to remove scheduled services? 99% of the time, it's going to be a scenario. If they go to the hospital, you're going to want to reassess the patient, so it's always best to remove the scheduled services, and it will wipe out everybody's calendar from this off-hold date forward. And it is going to ask you to confirm, so you'll choose OK. And then the next step would be to add that resumption of care order to get that ROC visit plotted. So you'd hover over that action item menu, choose Add Interim Order, Resumption of Care Order, choose the discipline that's going to do the Oasis, and the effective date of that visit, and then hit save. And then again, scheduling would assign that visit, and then when you go out there to add your service note, it would be an Oasis integrated assessment, and you would choose a ROC. Now, in a resumption situation, you may need a couple other order types, unfortunately. If they do have a new diagnosis or any of those items on the 485 change, like their activities permitted, mental status, prognosis, all of that, if any of it changes, you would still have to add an additional clinical update order to get those new diagnoses and changes added to the encounter. The other thing that you may need to do is adjust for your interventions and goals. So on a resumption of care order, you would be able to also attach interventions and goals to that and the clinical update. You can add make changes to your interventions and goals. You can end date ones that no longer apply, and then you can add new ones if new ones apply. That was the other thing I was going to tell you. On a resumption, if there's multiple disciplines that need to go out and reassess the patient, such as therapy, then on this order, you do have the option to add assessment services. And I know this pop-up moved way down here, but it's normally right there by the mouse when your screen's on a normal size. And so you can plot your other disciplines that need to go out there and assess the patient and what day they are going to go. And then you would hit save, and then those would need to be assigned. So that's that. A discharge a patient. To discharge a patient, you do have to place them in discharge status. So by the patient encounter, or by the patient name and the patient encounter, you would choose discharge patient, and you'll get this pop-up window. You can choose what reasoning for the discharge. Now, it is going to require an order type. We do have it set up to require one of these discharge forms. So you pick whichever one your agency prefers to use, and it will automatically add it to the Orders tab. This was never added. And then so when you hit that, it does put this patient in a discharge status. It'll show you the discharge date, and you can see it added my discharge summary. So you would come to the Orders tab, click on the edit pencil to go in here, and you would finish filling out your discharge summary and sign it. And there is a way, depending on if anything's tied to it, to reverse a discharge. Just so you guys know, under the current encounter on the Profile tab, if you choose Edit. But once this is tied to something like an invoice or a submitted Oasis, and you will not be able to reverse that. Any questions on orders? Order types?
No, we're good. Thanks, Brendan.
Okay. The last thing that we were going to discuss and listen, and we'll open it up for questions and answers, is I wanted to go over the work basket and then the unread messaging. The work basket has to be set up by your administrators, and whatever's assigned to you is going to show up in this basket. Now, initially, you are going to have to set your defaults to whatever it is that first of all, you're only going to get what you have assigned to you. So you're not going to see anything that you don't have assigned, but you can set your defaults, and or you can just uncheck that My Tasks, and then all of the tasks will show up for the agencies. Most of this kind of stuff that you're going to see on my end, you're probably not going to see. Actually, well, I don't know if it was set up that way, but everything up under the Action tab are items that have to be addressed to get rid of it out of the work basket. So like under the, you guys won't ever have to worry about the associates, but it'd be like missing associate information or out of compliance kind of things for HR. Under the clinical record, there'd be things like approval of certification. The word certification and 485 are synonymous. So approval of certification is going to be approval of your 485s. That's going to show you a list of all your 485s that are either in an initiated or saved status and that they have not been approved or sent or received. Approval interim orders are every other order type besides your 485. So there's going to be lists there. I know you guys probably won't be addressing that, but there's going to be some other clinical items that are in there that I just don't have available right here. Patients with no services are patients that are active that have no visits assigned to them. You guys won't see much of it. You won't see any of this stuff, I'm sure, but this is for referral source information, incomplete referral source information, patient payer data incomplete. So most of this stuff you aren't going to see. The one thing that you might see, and it's not scheduled to my clinical trainer apparently, is the one you guys would use the most, which is under the scheduling. Under the scheduling, this is going to show you all the assessments that are in an incomplete status. And then that'll let you know if you've got notes. That's one way of you knowing that you've got notes that are still in an incomplete status that you guys got to get complete. And it tells you the associate's name, who that's assigned to, et cetera. So this is a good way to come in here and find any incomplete service notes that you guys need to go back and complete. There's also case communications and notifications. I need to sign back in as clinical trainer. Those are items that need manually deleted. So I do have a couple here. So under case communications, if you have any of these assigned to you, you might get some notifications. So sometimes when a note is added to a patient, different things were done in a patient name, you might get an encounter, you might get a note here. These you have to actually delete them after you read them. You can export them if you wanted to, but you need to delete them. You don't want these to build up in your work basket. And I shouldn't have necessarily done that. And then you'll have notifications too of new referrals, discharges, patients placed on hold, things like that. So you also get notifications for those. And these also have to be manually deleted. Just don't let them build up. And if you aren't using them, you know, your administrators can maybe unassign them to you so you don't even have to worry about deleting them all the time. Any questions about the work basket? For the field staff, there's not much in there for you guys. This is going to be mostly the office staff, you know, because they're going to make sure everything's running smoothly. Things are color-coded in here. If it's red, it's after, you know, it's late. Let's see if I can see some items that are white. Yeah, okay, so items that are in a white status, those, when it first comes to the work basket, it'll be white background with black letters for 24 hours, or depending on how the work basket is managed, but usually 24 hours, and then it's going to escalate it to yellow background with black letters, and sometimes it's hard to find some of those. But it'll do that for another 24 hours. It'll be yellow, or however the work basket's set up. There's a yellow one. So this one means it's kind of intermediate. It's a little bit late, maybe not late at all, but it's just met that time threshold, so now it's turned yellow. And then anything after that, it escalates again. It's going to be red with white lettering, so you guys can see what's a little bit older and needs to be addressed first. The unread messages, this is going to be important for you guys because of the QA process. You will get messages if they do QA your note and they send you a message to make changes. Whoever does the QA process will mark your service note as incomplete, and you will just, you know, from your home screen, you would be able to hit edit and be able to do that. But you can come in here to your unread messages. This is also basically kind of like it's an internal messaging system that's HIPAA compliant within our servers. So you guys can use this to communicate with other staff members. We are making changes to it here and there, so you may have different functions in the future. But you can send messages to entire teams, disciplines, entire disciplines, all disciplines, or just specific users. So you can add as many users as you need to this message. You can also, if you need to remove somebody, you can highlight their name, hit the X, type in your message, and hit send, and they will get that message. But again, for the QA process, it will show you that you need to review your service note. If you click on that, it'll actually take you to the patient's service note tab that they QA'd, and you will be able to find your note. It'll be in an incomplete status, and you can see it'll say QA and response is incomplete. That means they QA'd your note, and you have not replied back. So in that aspect, if you need to do that, you just hover over the action item menu next to that service note, choose Edit Page Service Note Assessment, and it's going to bring you into that service note. The fastest way to fix what you need to is to click the Change section, and you can see the two that I need to respond to are red font, and it says Response Needed. So I can just skip to that, click to where that response is needed, and you can see that you can click on the Review section. You'll see what the message is that they wrote. Need to document visit type. So you'll add a response where you'll say, you know, completed, or if you don't agree with what they're asking you to do, you can tell them you don't agree with it, and you guys can go back and forth until everybody's happy. And then you'll hit close. It'll bring you back into here. So you added your response. You're going to fix that. Now you can move on to the next section that needs a response. Again, click Review section, add your response, hit save, hit close. It does change that from red to green, so you know that you did have a response, and then again, you don't see that anything is required in here either. And then they would just mark it as complete.
And Brendan,
and then that's how you, yes.
We have a question regarding ordering supplies. Currently, the clinicians send a note to their scheduler for supplies. Will that be the same way in this system?
There are a couple ways you can do that. Let me go to, there's two ways you can do that. One is it can be done in the service note. Now this is for, it doesn't order supplies, it just allows you to add them to the invoice or add them to the service, and it goes through verification process where then it would then go to an invoice if needed. So on your header and supply section, there's the supply link. You would click on that, find your supply, how many do you need, and then you can hit save and add more if you have more supplies you need to add, or hit save and close when you're done. This will add them to this service. So you'll see them down here, and then when they go to verify that service, which is the other place that you can add them. So this is 4.5 for admission test. So let me show you on the verified services. Which one it is? I think that was it. Here we go. So when they go to verify the service, they'll see that that supply is here already, or if it needed to be added during the verification process, this is where you can also add the supply. And whoever verifies the service can also edit this if needed. They can click on the edit pencil to edit any of that information. Again, you can hit the add supply. Now, I can't do anything right now because I don't have that note in a complete status. But this is the two places. You can add it inside the header and supply section of the service note, which is where your field staff would do it, or they can notify whoever in the office that has ability to do this on the verification side. Then they can come in here and add the supply to the service this way.
Brendan, is there a way that the schedulers, who are the ones who order the supplies, will be able to be alerted that there is a supply note in there?
No, again, those are just to get those on on the invoice and attached to the patient in that way. So if you're talking about ordering, Foley catheters for a patient that they don't have, we're not integrated in with the supply company as far as that goes. So you guys would have to still order supplies however you're ordering them. But this is how we get them in care efficient onto an invoice and attached to a service.
I have a question.
I'm sorry. I got dropped off, Brendan. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I did want to clarify. We don't. I don't know what the answer was. They were asking about ordering supplies. We do not have a way to order supplies through our system. I know in your previous system you were tied to the McKesson supply system. That is a discussion for another day. We haven't even begun that process yet. So right now, I don't know. You'll need to check with your leadership to find out what your process is for ordering supplies.
Yeah, that actually,
Yeah.
that actually wasn't really our question, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
And you can add the supplies on the mass verification or single verification. You have that option at that time to add them, and again, just goes to the invoice.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me? Now there is a place in the system where a note can be added of supplies that are needed and send to us? Can they send us a message, a note somewhere in care efficient where they can just put what supplies are needed and send it to the scheduler?
Yeah, you could use that under the unread messages, the internal messaging system. You can send them messages directly and just let them know what you need and for who and all that information that you guys need. Other than that, you can do a note under the patient's notes tab. We could create a label or whatever, the administrators agree on, that whatever process would work, but they can add a note to the notes tab, and you guys get notifications under your work basket for when the notes are added to the counter.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a chat question. Can QA make edits and or add information to clinical documentation for the clinician? No. When they do the QA process, they'll add, your note is actually grayed out. They can't change anything on your note. They will just choose to review the section and add you a message to you, what they want you to change. And then again, you'll see that under the unread messages, which will, again, you'll have to respond to within the service note. So nobody else can change your documentation. But on an Oasis integrated assessment, remember I told you that you're done with your service note part of it. There is the ability for the office staff, and I'm going to go through this in a later training with them, they will be able to go into your Oasis, because that edit pencil will not be grayed out when the service note's actually approved. They will manage the Oasis from here, and then they would be able to make changes to the Oasis questions. Now, when somebody else goes into an Oasis, there is an audit trail. It will void the original record, and then it'll update it. The person who performed it will not change, but the reviewed approved by will show whoever went into that Oasis. And so they can change Oasis questions, just like they'll change your diagnosis codes for you after it goes through coding. They'll be able to make any kind of adjustments and corrections to the Oasis directly here and then get it transmitted. And this would be, in agreement with you. I mean, they need to make sure it's okay with you if they ever did that. But there is an audit trail on these. So there would be a voided record, and it would tell you who went in there. And we haven't even gone through the QA process with administrators yet, so that'll end up being covered later on that side of it. And that's, of course, managing these Oasis too. So we haven't gotten that far yet. Any other questions? The only other thing that I didn't really show you is those follow-up visits. What is today, the 7th? Now, I don't really have a good one to show you with. I'll just show you with the home health aide. So for follow-up routine visits, you do the same thing. Click on your visit on the home page, click Add Page Service Note, and instead of doing the Oasis integrated, you would just choose regular assessment. And then you would choose your note type. Now I'm on a home health aide visit, but you would choose your skilled nurse routine visit note, or, and then it's going to be just your service note. It's not going to have the locators that are in your starter cares and research, and it's not going to have your Oasis questions. It's just going to be way, way stripped down and way easier and quicker to fill out as well, obviously. You guys are quiet. Any questions? I mean, I know when we go live, that's probably when we're really going to get the questions, but yeah.
Brendan, you don't have a skilled nurse revisit to look at?
Yeah, well, I can get one. Hold on. These are just set up on the wrong patient. So let me go to this patient encounter. Okay, so here's the home health aide RN revisit. So just click on your visit. Again, choose Add Page Service Note Assessment. Then you're going to choose Regular Assessment. And then you're going to choose, these are all the different note types that are in there. So a typical routine note will be the SN routine note. This is just for all your regular follow-up visits. You'll choose that one, hit Continue. And then it's going to look and function the same. It's just going to have less questions and stuff in there. So again, you would hit your time in when you started your visit. On your follow-up visits, you do start getting clinical data as it has been added to the encounter. So very important information before you treat the patient. Again, you would hit Next. We didn't develop any task actions on this patient, but you would enter those task actions. I wish I had that going for you. We don't have those. And then it kind of just skips over. You'll have the billable, non-billable patient identifier. You have copy previous data on some of these. So if there is a note that's in a complete status that has information entered in that section, it would show up in this list, and you can choose to pre-populate this information off the most recent service note if needed. Again, on the vital signs, when you guys add those vital sign ranges from the encounter, it does give you these little alerts if you enter outside of the range. And if you hover over the action item menu, it'll tell you what the range should have been. So it does give you a heads up that you need to call the doctor. There's way less sections in here. There's the vital signs: pain, neuro, cardiac, respiratory, GI, GU, musculoskeletal, integument, the wound. Remember, on-demand sections, if the patient actually has wound care, you do need to click on the Apply on Demand, come in here and pick which wound applies to this patient and how many you need, or combination of any of those different ones. Then hit Save, and then it will then pull those into the service note for you to document against. See, so now that wound other 1 and wound other 2 are now in there. Same thing with the diabetic foot exam, lab, and IV therapy / injection. So all those are stripped out of the notes unless you need them. And of course, you'd fill out your note, come back, enter your timeout, have the patient sign, choose electronic signature, hit Enter Signature. Patient signs in the box. And when you're done, you'll just mark it as complete. If anything is missing that was required, you will get those errors. Again, you can just click on those errors. It takes you directly to where you need to enter that information. All these required sections, those are going to give you those errors. So you guys will get used to it when you run into those, that you guys just need to answer those while you're in the note. But it won't let you complete your note without answering required section. Any other questions?
Brandon, I know we're almost out of time, but we happen to have a medical social worker here in the room. Do you have a medical social worker note that we can look at?
I could show you what one would look like. It looks a little bit different format, but yes, hold on. So there's 2 different ones. There's the assessment, and then there's the routine. They only have the 2 different types. So I'll export both of these and kind of show you what those look like. They got the patient identifier, MSW initial assessment, general patient information, describe reason for referral, activity level, ethnic or cultural information, education level, learning barriers, abuse, neglect, exploitation, general habits, alcohol use, caffeine, tobacco, pain and symptom assessment, facility assessment, emergency evacuation assessment, MSW, medical necessity, MSW, next of kin, responsible party, patient relies on, and then the different functions here, financial assessment, visit type, if this is an assessment, admission, progress, discharge, billable, visit, non-billable, then the MSW note here, care coordination to plan of care, collaboration with which disciplines.
Brendan.
And then there's their locator 22, yeah.
So can you, on your screen, you have a, like at the top there where you can, because that is really small, and I'm sure if they're trying to see, yeah, there you go, because I'm sure they can't see that.
I apologize.
Thank you. That's okay.
So then they get their, this is the routine visit, so just a follow-up visit. It's got the patient identifier, the homebound status, emotional behavior status, care coordination, plan of care collaboration, which is the same in the other one, and then the narrative, the objective narrative. So their note is, the routine note is extremely short, but again, on their narrative, they can type in as much as they needed to as well.
Thank you.
I saw that before.
Thank you, Brendan.
I'm not quite sure how to get to it.
We may have one more question regarding orders. Darylyn, did you want to ask a question?
No, we were wondering when the patient actually signs, like as you walk in and you have the beginning of your visit and then you have to sign right then?
Well, we're not going to use that feature yet.
Oh, okay.
We will eventually have them sign the tablet, but we're still going to use our process now. Yeah.
And you guys, you know, in those service notes, again, you do have the option to address orders and care needs directly from the inside your service note. You have that option, and same with meds. You can address your meds directly from within your service note. Now, this orders is almost obsolete now. It does give you the verbiage that's inside those orders, frequencies and durations for each discipline. So you do have that information here, but you can also just view that from right here. So just remember that as well. And guys, if you get questions, write them down. You know, we'll get them answered for you. And we do have, the go live meetings and other trainings that we're going to be going through. So, just let me know any questions you guys have.
Well, it's
we have a question.
so it looks like everything that we put into the orders that is in relation to the patient, like medication contraindications and changes in care, that type of thing, all goes to the doctor. And it seems, it's confusing where you put no signature required and where you send it to the doctor, because we don't want to be sending the doctor our, daily diary of every single thing that we do. But it looks like everything that we're doing is actually going into the order section.
You guys communicate with the doctors every day about your visit?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what it appears to look like.
No, no. I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Yeah,
Go ahead, JP. Go ahead.
No, it's like I say. I mean, because you're not writing orders every day. Your orders go to the physician. Your service notes are only your documentation, and unless you actually have something in your order that you, or in your service note that generates an order that you specify needs to go to the physician, the only thing you're communicating with the physician are your orders, not your service notes. Or am I misunderstanding?
No, I think that answered the question, Brendan.
Okay. Now, just so you guys know, and I don't want to confuse you, because some agencies do have to send like their therapy evals to get signed by a physician. There is a way to generate an interim order from your service note, and it pulls all that verbiage into an order for you so that you can send it out as an order. CareFish has that ability. I don't think that's what you were referring to at all, but if that is a scenario that is useful for you guys, just know it's there. And even co-signing notes. A lot of agencies will do co-signatures for MSWs especially, or maybe even the PTs may sign off on a PTA. We do have agencies that do that. And then they can come.
Well, and I know on the hospice side now, I know they do have that the RNs are signing off for the LVNs for certain things. So I don't know if you do that on the home health side or not, but I mean we do have that ability as well.
Yes, we do. We do have that on the home health side.
Okay. Now, do they just sign off on their notes, or just if they if the LVN writes an order, does the RN and they sign it, does the RN have to co-sign it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's actually a director that co-signs for the LVN.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Brendan, we need to make sure we go turn on the rule for all the home health agencies. I know we did it for hospice, that the LVN orders require a co-signature.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll go through that. And Ollie, just so you know, I did turn on and made sure that the fax verbiage override was turned on for all of them. I did double check your autosave, and it is at 7 minutes, but that is not for forms. That's only for service notes, orders, and interim orders. Service notes, 485s, and interim orders, that the autosave is turned on for those three. So just FYI, and I'll make sure that the orders require RN signature as well.
Do we still put in the home health aid?
Do we what?
Will we still be putting in the home health aid care plan?
Yes. She went over that, yeah. Thank you, Brendan.
All right. No, thank you guys. And we'll talk to you soon. You guys have a great day.
You.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, guys.